Today is day 2 of the G20 Social Summit, the flagship platform for integrating civil society voices into the G20 decision-making process. And for more on this, let's now cross live to my colleague, Full View anchor Bongiwe Zwane, who is live for us in Boksburg on Gauteng's East Rand today. Over to you, Bongiwe.
We are coming to live from Boksburg at the Social Summit. It's day 2, and currently you have different thematic groups that are reporting back to the plenary session, especially after some of the discussions that they would have had on issues like inclusivity, issues around justice, issues around climate resilience, as well as some of the conversations that would be taking place around health funding. There are various, activists who are joining the conversations here, and also some of them we've been speaking to on the sidelines of this particular social summit, who are talking about the fact that it's going to be important for South Africa to make sure that this is not just a talk shop, that is going to be a gathering that's discussing a lot of these issues that are not only plaguing South Africa, but also the continent. It needs to actually be seen in expression, in action, in different societies and even different societal spaces. One of those activists who've been watching the developments here with us is Eucharia Nkengafack. She's a feminist activist from Cameroon. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Hi, good evening.
Let's start firstly with, for you as an activist, right? Because you and I have been talking a lot off camera about the work that you're doing with various platforms, various women from different spaces. Let's talk firstly about your impressions of the social summit and some of what you're hoping will be achieved here.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my views on the sidelines of the G20 Social Summit. From yesterday, where we had the opening session, it has been reiterating and emphasizing on global issues and global concerns that we as a collective, we need to address and put our hearts to it to be sure that we attain the sustainable and transformative futures. So for me, I think what I'm looking forward to is to how we are going to translate the discussions into our actions individually and collectively. And I'm also looking forward to how the declaration from the Social Summit is going to translate to global leaders taking action to implement it, for us to see the change and for us to work together to actually see the change that we are all looking for as a people.
And one of the spaces that you work very hard in is the space around gender-based violence, right? And I wonder, when you are speaking to women across the different platforms that you speak to them, the different countries, what are you seeing as some of the challenges that they continue to go through in this particular space, given some of the work that's already been done to try and bring down the numbers when it comes to the scourge?
All right. First of all, I would first of all say, by engaging in these different spaces like the Women of the South Speak Out Fellowship, where I get to meet women from the global South, different countries, one of the things that happens is, first of all, there's a lot of work being done. But then again, the prevalence of violence is still skyrocketing. The reason why, because we still have cultural norms and practices, we still have a lot of stereotypes that are holding women back from speaking, and we still have a lot of laws are not actually being reinforced in different countries as much as they should be reinforced for all survivors to be able to speak up and for them to share their perspectives. Also, we have issues of safe spaces. How safe are those spaces for them to speak up? What are the chances of secondary victimization? And if they know there's a chance for secondary victimization, then they are not able to share their perspectives. Overall, we need to encourage more and more people to support survivors wherever they are, to listen to them, give them an opportunity to share their perspectives, to speak up for themselves, and to share their stories. And once we hear their stories, we should be able to create spaces that helps them to heal and to overcome. And we should raise awareness against gender-based violence and femicide, because I know it's a national disaster in South Africa, but it's not just in South Africa. While interacting with young women from different countries, in Cameroon, in Kenya, in Ghana, wherever, most of them still talk about the fact that there's gender-based violence, there's femicides. Maybe other countries have different rates and different statistics, but it doesn't mean it is not happening. And because it's happening, we need to make sure we keep raising advocacy to end the vicious cycle, work together as a collective, engage men and boys, engage multi-stakeholders. I think that was one of the key points that was mentioned yesterday at the opening session of the G20 Social Summit. Engage multi-stakeholders to participate in ending gender-based violence and femicides.
So tell me, how are you hoping the leaders deal with some of the challenges that you've raised here?
Take your question again.
How are you hoping the leaders at the leaders summit? How are you hoping they deal with some of the challenges that you're raising here, especially when it comes to their declaration, right? Because you're hoping that whatever it is that you're talking about here finds expression in that document at the end of the day. How are you hoping they deal with this or address it?
I'm first of all hoping that the collective and global voices that have come here, as they share their voices and aspirations in the different engagement groups, first of all, it should be taken into consideration and well documented, so that it is well, when it's documented well, then we know that this is what is coming from the grassroots. And then from there, these declarations are taken to the global leaders. Once they take them to the global leaders, the hope is for global leaders to action it, to put it into action and to prioritize it in their different development and policy formulations, and also in the different programs and agendas they will be setting. Because if it is not prioritized and it is not mainstreamed in all other aspects of work, then we are going to live here and we will not have our objectives being met. So from talking and engaging in conversations, let's move from there to action, and take action and keep taking action until we see the change and until we see a decline in gender-based violence and femicides.
Eucharia, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to us. That is Eucharia, the Eucharia Nkengafack, feminist activist from Cameroon, speaking to us about some of the issues that they would have raised inside, because she does also speak to a lot of women from the global south, the women, the Women's Fellowship there, that is speaking to a number of women about what they're going through. And also, when we were talking about this issue, the subject of gender-based violence, we also spoke to the chairperson of the Public Service Commission, that is Professor Somato Tafigeni, talking to us about how do public spaces become safer for women? How does the Public Service Commission make sure that it is also holding those to account who are in those public spaces? And also, how do you begin to tackle the issue of gender-based violence from that perspective? Let's listen to some of what he said.
Civil society organizations should now be agents that are watchdogs to make sure that what is promised by departments is followed. As the Public Service Commission, a constitutional body charged with the oversight and accountability ecosystem of public service, anything that ministers commit to, that Director Generals, HODs, MECs, Premiers, we are going to make sure that, as we normally do, we follow that, report on that, and ask them when it doesn't appear on their annual performance plans, when there is no follow-through. And people can also check with the Public Service Commission and report where certain things have been promised, budgeted for, and they are not being implemented.
All right, Mbali, those are some of the conversations, right, that need to be had, especially not only from a South African perspective, but from an African continent perspective, because you heard Eucharia, for example, earlier on speaking about the fact that this is a challenge that she's witnessing across some parts of the continent. So certainly the report backs and the declaration that is made here at the Social Summit, they are hoping that it finds expression in the leadership declaration at the end of the weekend. But of course, that all remains, a subject for us to wait to see if it does even get to that particular document. But certainly some of the activists here are hoping that whether or not it does make it or it doesn't make it to the leadership declaration, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in the different spaces to effect change. It's back to you in studio.
All right. Thank you so much for that update.